You've said you're not much interested in politics, but you're obviously interested in social issues, and you said in particular questions of class. Why class?
Why am I interested in class? I don't know. I find it really, I think it's because if you are even part English, you have a fascination with class because the English class system is so, like I do this, every now and again I go to England to do book tours and such, and I used to do these speaking tours, and they were organized by these two guys, Richard and John, who were partners. And Richard and John were both very posh. And so one of the things I love to do when I'm out with lots of English people is to make them all rank each other according to their level of poshness, because they can all do it, right? And it makes them very uncomfortable, but they kind of like doing it. So there was about 10 of them. And so I said, okay, rank yourself. Tell me who's the poshest. And so it was pretty clear that Richard and John were the poshest. But neither of them wanted, then they were like, well, who's posher of the two of us? And neither wanted to be the poshest. So they started to have an argument in front of us about who was posher. And Richard said to John, you're posher because your grandfather's butler used to pick you up every morning and drive you to Eton in the family Rolls Royce. And John said to Richard, no, you're posher. You grew up in a house with a moat. And that was like, how awesome is that you can live in a society in 2011, this was 2011, where people are still paying attention to things like, was there a moat around the house you grew up in? So, I mean, who doesn't think this is interesting? And then also what's interesting is, if you live in New York, especially in America, you realize that America, founded on a repudiation of the British class system, then promptly constructs one of its own, which is every bit as kind of ridiculous and problematic and, only American, and also it's actually incredibly similar. The British class system is founded on three things: real estate, inheritance, and schools that no one get into, right? What do the Americans do? Well, they cut inheritance taxes to just about zero, so they can resemble, so that rich people can actually turn themselves into peers, essentially, right? So they're not actually handing down estates in Scotland to each other. They're just handing down estates. I mean, the equivalent, modern equivalent, and they construct a system of schooling, which is this insanely hierarchical, privileged thing where you can get in. Basically, you're guaranteed of getting in only if your parents went there, or you pay a lot of money. Right? Actually, do you know what? This is one of the little things that I'm fascinated by. Each American Ivy League school has a number. And the number is the amount of money you have to pay as a parent to guarantee your child getting into that school. It doesn't matter how fancy the school is, they all have a number. Now, the number has been rising in recent years. It used to be quite modest. Now it's actually quite high. So whenever I meet someone who's up in the administration of an Ivy League school, I say, what's the number up to, right? And they'll all just deny it exists and hem and haw, and then finally if you kind of push them on it. Do you know what the number is at Yale, I'm told? 20 million. Now, you all gasp. I think that's too low. Look, these people have a lot of money. Someone's got to take it from them. I would think Yale would be a little more aggressive than that. These are kids who can't get into Yale on their own power. So, look, you've got them over a barrel. You have they desperately want to go to Yale because Daddy went to Yale. They're inferior students. Add a zero. See what happens. Why do they? It's the same thing. I'm always reminded of this. You know when you ever read stories about spies, and there's always it's a long, complicated thing. Turns out that Hugo was spying for the Soviets for 25 years, and then the punchline, you're always like, oh wow, 25 years. Like and he handed over every top secret, and then you keep reading, and then it says, and in return for handing over every one of America's top secrets over 25 years, Hugo amassed a fortune of $200,000. And you think, Hugo, what's the matter with you? You're sitting on all of the top secrets. You're giving them away to the enemy, and that's all you're asking for? These guys are morons. Never once. Find me a spy who became a millionaire from spying.
But they're all ideological. It's not
Oh, no,
about
no,
money.
they're not
It's
ideological. They're disgruntled. And then sometimes, very big difference. Although in America, disgruntled and ideological are the same thing. But they're not. They like the money. But then, and they always bust them. You know what they say? They bust them because they noticed he was driving a Jaguar, right? And he shouldn't have been on his civil service salary. That's the best he could do, right? It's this failure of imagination on the part of people who want to commit great moral crimes. Anyway, that ties back into the
something.
The Yale thing.
Ties back into something. we talked in terms of successful people. Many of them are not necessarily risk takers. Do you think of yourself as a risk taker?
No, I don't think of, no, not at all. I've worked for a series of Fortune 500 companies. I worked for the Washington Post when it was one of the biggest media conglomerates in the world. And then I moved to the New Yorker magazine, which was an even more profitable media conglomerate. And then I have my books published by a third, even larger media conglomerate. I have been in the bosom of big business my entire life. There's nothing, I'm like the Stanford computer science PhD. I've been gambling with other people's money my whole career.
It's great to have a chance to talk to you again. Thank you so much. We have a bit of time for questions. If you have a question, there's a microphone in the middle, and just come on up.
Malcolm, a lot of people, including Warren Buffett, say
Please.
A lot of people, including Warren Buffett, say the key to success is hard work. I think Warren Buffett says 99% perspiration, so you know that. How do you put that in the context of your book, Outliers, where you define success also is not in your control?
Yeah.
Or primarily it's not in your control.
Well, I do talk in the book about the 10,000-hour rule and this notion of very clearly that people at the highest levels of achievement are those who have outworked their peers. But I think one of the points I was trying to make in the book is that the opportunity to work hard is itself sometimes arbitrarily bestowed on. So that's why I spent so much time talking about Canadian hockey players and why people born in the first half of the year were more likely to end up in the NHL. They worked harder than their peers, but they were given an opportunity to work harder because of a random fact, because they were much older than their relative class and stood out at an earlier age and were selected out into all-star teams and such. So I think it's important to understand that, it takes, if you want to be a great classical pianist, you have to play an awful lot of classical piano, but you also need to be wealthy enough to have access to a great teacher and a piano and the leisure to play if you're working part-time jobs to help your family make ends meet, you can't put in the hours necessary to be a classical pianist. So I think we have to understand that hard work is a function of advantages. The ability to work hard is a function of advantages.
So what comes first, I guess, things that are not in your control?
Well, I think they're together. I think that they're linked. It differs from case to case.
Thank you.
Hi, Malcolm. I really enjoy your work for ESPN, Grantland. I see that you're listed as a consulting editor. I'm wondering if you've been consulting on the editing for the site, if you plan on writing for it again soon.
Oh yeah, I have a friend who is a sports writer in America, and I do things with him, and he started this new website. That's what the question's about. I intend to, in fact I'm doing something right now for them, but it's just a matter of time. they are sadly not number one on my list of responsibilities. And so, but it's a great environment to write for, because if you write for the internet, you quickly realize you can say anything you want, which is such a kind of wonderful. And if you read the internet, you realize how true that is, that people say anything they want.
Hi, Malcolm. Oops, I'm short here. What I wanted to know is, how do you, on a personal level, decompress? Because your mind's always going over time. Do you, like, dream and then ideas and then, you wake up? Or are you able to just to chill, take it easy, and not think so much?
Well, I'm not like this all the time. This was unusual. I mean, I don't. I always wonder. I don't really work that hard. I don't. I just spend. I just kind of wander around my neighborhood. So I have plenty of time to decompress. And also, I go running and I don't put in things. So I get that's my time for thinking, and it's more the opposite. I have to find ways to look for stimulation as opposed to find ways to decompress. I think of, when I look at normal people's lives, I feel like I can't imagine how they deal with all of that stimulation. Going into an office, people talking to you all day, just seems to me kind of overwhelming. I used to go to the office and I stopped going because it was like, there were so many people. It was, even going up in the elevator, it was just like, oh my goodness. They come in waves, like planes over O'Hare, as I like to say. But so my life is quite quiet.
But you have started going on tour, like you take Malcolm Gladwell live on tour. You did about a couple of years ago.
Yeah, but those are...
Or public speaking.
Yeah, I like...
In theaters, not just the...
Yeah, I like public speaking is a different matter, because it's if you're giving a talk, you decide what you're going to talk about, and it's time limited. It's all over in 40 minutes, right? So it's like, it's not open-ended, like, sometimes, and it's, and people are seeing you at your best, right? Because you've prepared and you've thought about what you're saying. So it's a very different experience than the kind of unruliness of normal social contact.
Mr. Gladwell, you've got a lot of practical information. You know a lot about winners and losers and what makes great entrepreneurs. So what I would really like to know is, how do you go about picking stocks?
Oh, I know nothing about them. I have a friend who is an investment person, and I often ask her for advice, and she refuses to give me any advice.
If she wants to be your friend.
She she essentially says, just put it under a mattress. So I don't think that's a. I actually conducted an experiment where I opened one of those kind of online accounts, and I put in some very, very vanishingly small amount every month, and I decided that on a very small level I would see if I could pick stocks, and I discovered that, of course, I can't. I don't think anybody can, by the way. I think it's all.
Even you have your limits.
What's that?
Even you have your limits.
Yeah, I very much have my limits, yes.
Hi, Malcolm. I'm an educator, and I just wanted to know if you have any plans of writing an entire book on education. I know you spoke about it briefly in one of your books. I can't remember. I think it's The Outliers. So I just want to know if you have any plans on writing it, and if you can speak a little bit about public education. I know it's a big topic, but...
Well, the first two chapters of my new book are on education. They're about sort of two fallacious theories I think we have about education, which I think are indicative of the way we misunderstand. I try not to give it away because, of course, I want you to buy the book. But, so I am returning to it. I think I have gotten more interested in education as time gets on. So yeah, there's a lot more in this one. Hopefully that will satisfy your
Okay, thank you.
your desire for more.
I'm afraid this is the last question.
I'm wondering if you went to private school. And the reason that this came to mind was you were asked about this, or you commented on it in the context of race and growing up in Ontario. And you mentioned that you went to Trinity College at U of T and you felt that there was a lot of diversity. And that got me thinking about class, which you commented on later, because I also went to Trinity College, and that was one of the times when I felt that there were the most distinctions. But they weren't along race lines, they were along class lines, because almost all the kids there went to private schools. And the few of us who went to public school stood out like sore thumbs.
Yeah. Yeah, I was one of the few, I wouldn't say few, I would say maybe by the time, I don't know when you were there, when I was there it was probably, I don't know actually. Was it 50-50, private, public? I don't know, maybe it was more private. But I was part of, there was a big distinction on my, I remember on my hall, there were like 3 of us public school kids. One of the other public school kids on my hall was, actually it's funny, I had this weird hall at Trinity College. There were 3 public school kids. Me, actually there were 4. Me, Nigel Wright, who is now is he still the chief of staff to Harper? And Jim Balsley of RIM. Those were the, and then the rest, most of the others were from much fancier backgrounds. So yeah, there was a lot of class at Trinity, and it was, remember, and Trinity, as you know, went out of its way to accentuate its, I mean, we were so busy pretending that we were a college at Oxford or Cambridge, that, you know, but mostly it was an attempt to lord it over the other colleges at U of T, right? Yeah, we wanted to, so yeah, it was a strange, a very profoundly, I had fun, but a profoundly strange environment to go to school.
Thank you.
Well, thank you all very much.
Thank you all for coming. Malcolm will be signing books.
'50 celebration, one of our commemorative books, Jamaicans in Canada, When Ackee Meets Codfish, and Malcolm is in that book. And then I'll ask Mr. Joe Halstead, with the other co-chair of Jamaica '50 celebration, to present one of our beautiful bouquet of flowers to Eleanor.